That talk confirmed all my fears, that I've mispitched my talk and I'm the dumbest person here, so don't panic. This is going to be hopefully less confusing. Thank you, James and Finton, for inviting me to talk today. I've been to this conference a few times, sat there. Is he Jesse? Can you put my slides up? Cool. I hope I can live up to some of the calibre I've seen here today and in the past, and I hope I can explain some of why I think digital farming's so cool. My name's Rob Carter. I'm CEO of Fieldmargin. We're trying to make farming easier through technology. It's all largely about connecting things together. To start with, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Fieldmargin does and what we do, where we've come from, and a bit about agricultural industry. Then I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about how technology will change farming in the quite near future. And then if we have time, we might do that stupidly ill-advised demo that Finton was alluding to that probably won't work. Please don't get your hopes up. This is 7 billion people in the world. At the moment, 1.4 billion people work directly in agriculture. We're talking about quite a large industry in general. Lots of these people aren't connected up to anything at the moment, but that's massively changing. So it is a large industry, estimated to be, on average, 10% of global GDP. Important. A couple of years ago, the World Wildlife Fund predicted that we would have to grow more food in the next 40 years than agriculture has produced in the previous 8,000. So there's a big challenge coming up. Currently, every hectare of land on the planet feeds about 4 people. In the next 15 years, that's going to have to be 7 people fed per hectare. So there are some efficiencies to be made. Lots of this is about changing how third world farming is done. Lots of this is about best practice. An awful lot of this will be technology based. I'm quite confident we're going to get there. My business partner is Mark, on the right. Mark took over running his family farm almost 10 years ago, but he was a software engineer first. So he's a very unusual person. He just couldn't believe how bad the farming industry software stuff was. It was all on PC. You've seen this 1,000 times before. Software was bad. Lots of other industries have got better at software. Farming is still a little bit in the dark ages, 90s sort of software. Lots of disparate information, out-of-date information, information on hard drives, information in notebooks, sort of stuck and siloed. Big machines though, so farms have got bigger, whilst the number of people to run farms has got fewer. So you've got to sort of, where do you actually go and do your farming problem to solve? Bigger farms, bigger kit, fewer people. You've got to sort of, what is the prioritization thing? This is actual screenshots from market-leading farm software on the left there, still today, not like from the 90s really. This is what it looks like. We felt we could sort of free it up, make it a bit easier. Understand that Mark is, although a farmer, has come from different sorts of software, and we could understand that we could make better sort of software. Intuitive, nicely designed. Not rocket science, just better looking and easier to use. Also, lots of people coming to farming now have been and had a career before farming and going back and relieving their parents of duties for them to retire. So they understand how software works and how iPhones work and how Macs work and how Wi-Fi works. And we have a lot less education to do of the new generation of farmers. We made Fieldmargin. Broadly speaking, you can map your farm, share things across the farm with other people using your phone, explain what fields are called, where they are, how to get from place to place. You put pins in the map of where you are or somewhere else and then have a conversation, like a sort of geolocated Slack is the simplest version of what we've done right now. But the whole point is it's pretty looking and easy to use. We've got some fans. This frustrated farmer, I don't know if anyone can read that. It's, I think your concept is superb. My phone and a Labrador are often the only 2 things I have to hand. So we've got some fans and we're on the right track. Nice customizable maps, works online, offline. You can chat and pass information around the farm. So what? Not very Internet of Things. Got it. We're going to be in the middle, like a platform. Salesforce are here. If we can imagine being a relatively simple platform that connects to lots more clever stuff around the periphery, that's where we want to get in farming. We're here. We've done the apps that you can get things from your brain into the platform. We're going to plug into things from the past, historical legacy software. We've already got a prototype of this where you can take a JPEG of a physical map, we auto-correct it, turn it into tiles, make it transparent, stick it on your phone, so you can walk around on a physical old map from the 50s. We've plugged in weather and other live open data to make it a richer experience for you from external larger organizations. I'm going to get to connected machinery a bit later and IoT sensors a bit later, and Earth observation is a big thing. All of this, we think, just having it in one place is going to make it more interesting and more easy to understand what's going on a farm if you can just see through all the layers. All of this hopefully will improve performance, and specifically that would be using less stuff, spending less time, or making more stuff. All of that is performance improvement in farming. We call that geotemporal information. So you're largely speaking talking about the same area of land year after year, but you want to have a time transactional cross-section of what's happened on that farm. So you can start hopefully drawing trends with your mind, and then down the line trends using computers. Right, that's Whirlwind Fieldmargin, that's that done. Part 2 is what I think farming in the future is going to look like. That's Matt Damon in The Martian, farming potatoes. I think we're right at the start. Everyone sort of said right at the start, but we're always right at the start because past is finished. Right, there's money flowing into this. Someone said there are 2,000 fintech startups. There's about 200 farming startups globally. Silicon Valley have woken up. Money's pouring into this, and rightly so. It's an enormous market, as I mentioned at the start. It's complicated, and it's really important to get right. So that's sort of computing power at its best, right? Complicated, lots of inputs, kind of important, lots of money. Silicon Valley are interested. Is it all science fiction? Well, I think lots of this stuff is so near future that it's already happening. This is great, I love this shot. This is actually, it looks like a laboratory. It is micro-herbs being grown 30 metres below Clapham Common for avocado by a company called Growing Underground. I looked them up today. They're selling these micro-herbs at £31 a kilo, so just slightly more expensive than their steak. So they're high margin goods at the moment, but the principle's there. They've replaced the sun with LED light because LED is so cheap, you can actually physically replace the sun with electricity and still make money. That's one thing that's already happening. I alluded to open data and connected data running around the internet. That's very important. Lots of useful information is already in silos. It's with governments, it's with agricultural companies, it's stuck on farms. More that this data opens up and is traveling around, getting aggregated and getting related to other things, the more valuable this data can possibly become. Like sort of field boundaries, that's sort of wrapped up in government stuff. DEFRA have released a bunch of things, the Met Office have released a bunch of things, Estonian government, unsurprisingly, are quite into this. Getting the data out is going to make other people lots and lots of money, which I think is a good thing. The information economy, sorry, I'm slightly slow down, I think I'm rushing. Being connected, it's a good thing. Farmers at the moment are kind of held back from the prices of stuff and the price they could sell stuff by their handlers. They don't know what their neighbour is paying for what. They don't know what prices their neighbours are achieving for what. This has got to change. This is going to change. It's going to be unavoidable. Something I also want to mention, farming is one of the loneliest things you could do. It's got the highest suicide rate of anything. I think connecting farmers together to talk about similar problems, only a good thing. That's great. Farmers haven't traditionally bought stuff off the internet. That's going to change. Pricing, transparency is going to increase. Prices are going to get competitive. There will be some winners and some losers. The people who are most clear, easiest to deal with, have the best service, they're going to win like they did in retail. WeFarm, there's a London startup connecting sub-Saharan African farmers who text each other questions, and the texts are sent out to understood to be mavens who will potentially solve the problem of why there's flies on their tomatoes at this time of year. effectively what they're doing is building up a sort of Stack Overflow of best practice in farming for sub-Saharan Africa, which I think is amazing. That's a brilliant thing to do. Very valuable database, going to take some of the hearsay and old wives' tales out of farming and a bit more science and rigor sourced by the crowd. I think that's great. Don't want to mention blockchain, partly because I don't understand it, but I can see a decentralized marketplace for produce being a very important thing that could happen down the line. At the moment, prices of stuff is set still in commodities marketplaces, and that doesn't seem right if your commodity is slightly better than someone else's, or you've got better traceability, or it's got a better content of something that you particularly need. I think those prices are going to be peer-to-peer matched, seller to buyer, and that's only going to be good news for the farmer. Taking some middlemen out of that arrangement is a good thing. Yeah, and selling second-hand kit, they don't buy anything off the internet. Farmers are kind of taken for a lot of rides at the moment, so I think price transparency is brilliant. Aerial imagery, specifically drones and planes and satellites. This is tending towards commodity information. The idea that you could have someone go up and take a picture of your crop every 6 weeks, even a few years ago was madness. Now this is a really cheap service you can get. Planet Labs, which is a micro-satellite company in California. They're about the size of a toaster, their satellites. They've got 100 of them. Their ideal is to photograph the entire Earth's surface every day. Google has a plane that doesn't come down, it's solar-powered, photographing the Earth constantly. This Earth observation stuff is going to really impact farmers. Here's what you'd see if you were looking down and you had really good eyesight. And here's what a machine sees. This is a sort of NVDI, it's called. It is a measure of infraredness. Essentially, you can see here, these bits here, they'd look green to your eyes, but they're showing signs that maybe the crop is underwatered or something. That's actionable insight that a farmer could make, switch on their remote-controlled stuff, water that bit, and increase their output. So I think aerial imagery is very important. There's a company in the States called Farmbot doing this quite well for corn. No one's ever had a view from the air of their crop regularly. This is quite good and important stuff, and as it gets commoditized, it's available for even the smallest farmers. Machine learning. There's a lot of data coming out. I think everyone can probably draw the blank, connect the dots here. If you have a lot of information about farming, you know what's gone in, what's come out, where you are, things about the land, things that you sort of strains of what you grew, you can start surfacing best practice in a way that no science lab has ever done. Universities, laboratories typically either do lab experiments, or they do, if it's agriculture, they'll do a couple of hectares around the country, or they'll do an experiment on a couple of herds. This connection of all farming information will lead to the world's biggest laboratory. They will be, and with machine learning, I think you will surface correlation that no one's ever thought to test for before. What are the right dates to sow things? What's the optimum amount of sunlight before your crop starts to degrade? All of these things, when you've got weather plugged in, when you've got what you're doing plugged in, I think it's going to start to be able to really start recommending and pointing at, you should do this now, you should do this now. That's going to be one of the biggest changes, I think. It's going to be one of the bits that plugs the gap between 4 people per hectare and 7 people per hectare is best practice and science brought about by machines, correlating things that no one else had correlated before. I used to give this talk even about 6 months ago, talking about this is going to be the future. Last week, John Deere spent £305 million on a machine learning startup. So they're up there, they're ready, they're understanding this is happening. This startup specialized in plant-specific crop spraying. Machinery. They're all Internet of Things machines on farms. Everything's connected, everything's talking to each other. There are lots of different examples of Internet of Things stuff that you could have on farm, like a connected gauge telling you when there's fuel coming out of your big fuel silo, temperature in your grain stores. There is a couple of startups pointed at measuring fertility and lameness of cattle using a special cow Fitbit. This, honestly, it's true. imagine understanding what temperature, precipitation, moisture, pH, RFID tags, what this means is if you measure this stuff, I think the machine learning later will start telling you the validity and more about what's related to what than we know currently. I saw a laser weeder the other day. It used a camera downward facing. It would walk down the crop and using image recognition recognize a sort of a weed rather than what they were trying to grow, and a laser would shoot the weed. It was brilliant. This is Farmbot. It's open source consumer product for people that both really like gardening and robots. The jib here, this bit, keeps a track of this. All of these are different plants with different needs, and it will pick up the seeding head, the water head, or the weeding head, depending on what it needs to do on this little thing. This is a lovely proof of concept. Obviously, it doesn't make sense for proper farmers until you start building something like this, which is the same thing, really. The weeding head is now a tractor that does its own stuff. This is Harper Adams' project. They're calling them agbots or agribots. If anyone mentions that stuff to you, can you try and push the phrase RoboCrop? I'm really pushing for that to be trying to make RoboCrop a thing. So this is the Hand-Free Hectare project. This field behind them, no one set foot in that field this year, and robots and drones did all of the work without anyone going in the field. A lovely proof of concept. The big guys, this is Case, one of the biggest tractor manufacturers in the world. That's what they think this stuff's going to look like. It looks quite a lot like what they make already, except they've taken the guy and put a computer there. Still got a really big exhaust pipe, massive tyres, and it's really expensive. This was used in, what was the film? Interstellar. These actually managed to get a cameo in Interstellar. But obviously big tractor manufacturers want to make big tractors. This is a project at the University of Lincoln. It's about the size of a dining table and wanders up and down cabbages, tending cabbages, by itself. It's called Thorvald, which I love. I think this is much more like what future machinery and Internet of Things on farm is going to look like. You can stick a camera on it, it's got batteries, it can work at night, it doesn't have an attitude. I think it's a really obvious thing to bring on. As farmers are being run by fewer people, the boring stuff is being done by robots. I think that's a brilliant idea. I used to give this talk about 3 months ago, and then this was announced. This is also now happening in real life. This is Dot, a Canadian business. Here's the little thing, like I just showed you in that image, except it's massive because there's a guy here. And it's picking up, that's a seed head, and it can wander out in the field and plant by itself. And the whole point is this bit picks up other bits that can do cleverer or less clever stuff on the field. That's the future of farming bit done. 18 minutes, how are we doing for time? Okay. Doing this stuff, I think there are some rules for farming of the future. They may or may not relate to what you guys do, but I thought I'd mention them because I hope maybe they're sort of cross-platform, maybe it's cross-industry. What you make, if you want to be the presentation there like us, everything needs to be connected and interoperable. The information can't be proprietary, it doesn't need decoding. If the information goes onto the platform, it needs to be understood by everyone. And it needs to go elsewhere. It needs to go on whatever device you've got in your pocket. The information must be let free and to run around. You need to be design-led. Think about who's using this stuff. If you were going to make a tractor again, would it look like the big red tractor without a driver on it? Or would you design for something more fit for purpose? If you explain to someone what they need to do, how would you design for it? We make apps, right? So we have to work out, if sat on a quad bike, bouncing along in the rain, could you still use what we make? Because that's kind of what our customers do. And this, the third bit is independent. If your business is selling seeds, chemicals, tractors, I don't think farmers are going to trust you to have all of the data you've asked them to give you, because that might be used for purposes other than helping you farm better. So I think independent meaning, if you're going to be a platform for this stuff, make that your business. don't tack it onto the side of a bigger business as a sales funnel. I think that's the end of my rules. Yes, here's the future. Done. 19 minutes. I'm going to talk about, right, James told me the digital twin, and I realised I haven't shown you what we do. This is our smart farm. This is actually my business partner Mark's farm, the guy right at the start. This is actually where his farm is. Those are 5 sensors, each of them doing a different thing. Light level on the crop, humidity in the hay loft, rain detector, is it raining, temperature in the stables, and the vegetable patch. But we operate out of Clerkenwell, and having these in Hertfordshire was inconvenient, so we made a non-digital twin of the digital twin and put it in our office. So, there's a Raspberry Pi, there are some sensors exactly where you think they are. That's the sunlight, temperature in the stables, humidity there. Here's our crop, a mint plant from Waitrose. And there's a little sensor in there. I wanted to bring it here, and then they said they couldn't guarantee us a static IP. That would make everything break, because it's a very fragile little thing. So what I'm going to hopefully do is phone someone in the office. Should we do that? And see if we can make the numbers change. Let's bring that up live. How do we... Hang on, let's go back to the last one. Right. We'll do demo 1. Come on, internet. Come on. Steve. Oh. Oh, man. Easily, very likely. Right. Is this the vegetable patch connected? Please don't lock me out. Is it working? I'm told this takes 22 seconds. In the meantime, while that's loading, I'm going to try and call Tom. Oh, it's worked. Amazing. This is Tom. I hope he hasn't gone home. So many things to go wrong. Raspberry Pi. Oh my God.
Hello?
Hey Tom, can you turn your camera on? Hey! There is the farm. Okay, first bit solved. It's in the office. Brilliant. Tom, could you water the mint plant for us? So, this is so go wrong. Okay, thanks Tom. How long do I have to wait for this to propagate through the servers? Steve, do it now. Doing it now. So this is the current moisture sensor in the mint plant. This bit, by the way, that's when the cleaner unplugged the Raspberry Pi. But our office is very tidy. Another 20-second wait. Please let that number have changed, and then we don't have to do the emergency second or the real emergency third demo. And it's broken! It's changed though. Is that sensor failure, Steve? Sensor failure. Someone spoke earlier about spending money on your sensors. The moisture sensors in that mint plant are 5 for £5. They break really regularly. Really regularly. So that is as close as you'll get to the live demo of what we tried to do, I think. We changed some numbers, not in the direction I was hoping for. I'm going to hang up on Tom. Bye, Tom. You're fired. And bring the last slide back up. Brilliant. Okay. I think that's the end of my talk.